Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. We have a slightly different view here today because we are going to take a look at the Goodreads Choice Awards for 2024. Now, I have not looked at these awards yet, and so I'm going in completely blind. I don't really have too many thoughts here about the Goodreads Choice Awards. I know a lot of people have a lot of feelings about them. For me, I do think it is something kind of fun. I will be very curious to see how many of these books I even know. I have a feeling that will be a very limited amount. We were going to see if there's any books after looking at this that I want to read, and then of course we'll see if I have read any of these. I think that will be, like I said, a pretty small number of books that I know, and especially books that I have read. And we are going to go ahead and look at a couple different categories today. We are going to go ahead and look at fantasy, sci-fi, the audiobooks because I am a big audiobook fan, romantasy because I have started to dip my toe into romantasy this year, and then also just fiction because why not? I figured we would go ahead and look at it. So let's go ahead and start with fantasy. So very quickly at first glance, there's a couple books I at least recognize here, which is making me feel a little bit better. And probably the best way to do this is to go in order. So let's go ahead and start with this. What is that? Map of the Other Lands, Emily Wilde, book number 2. No idea, have not heard of that one. The Dead Cattail Assassins, have not heard of that one. I'm really liking this cover of the 5 Broken Blades. It's the season for treason, the king must die. I don't know, that kind of sounds like something I might want to read. Now then we have Empire of the Damned, which is one of my favorite books of 2024. This came out pretty early in the year, and I will say I'm kind of surprised that Empire of the Damned is here. This does not feel like a Goodreads book, if that makes sense. I don't know if I have a way of explaining that any more than just saying it like that. But Empire of the Damned is not one that I would have expected to see here, but I am happy because I definitely think, as far as a fantasy book goes, that this book by Jay Kristoff is one of the best ones I have read, especially this year, and I am eagerly awaiting book 3, The Lost Story by Meg Schaffer. I believe this is a book I had planned to read at some point, so it's kind of nice to see it getting nominated here with 20,000 ratings. I'm pretty sure this is one I had on a list of new releases I wanted to read, and unfortunately I did not get around to this one yet. But it is one, that it's nice seeing it, put somewhere where I can remember and definitely get to it at some point. The Tainted Cup, I have heard a lot about this by Robert Jackson Bennett. I have not read anything from that author yet, and maybe I will at some point. This is not one of those ones that ever really spoke to me. When Among Crows, that one does not sound like something for me. A Sweet Sting of Salt, that cover just alone makes me not very interested, which, don't judge a book by its cover, but we all do, right? And then TJ Klune, Somewhere Beyond the Sea. My girlfriend is actually currently reading this right now. Probably as I am recording this, she is downstairs reading. The loved the first book The House at the Cerulean Sea or something. I told her I would read it at some point, so I definitely plan on reading the first one, and I'm sure I will have to read the second one at some point. I do like to read some stuff that she likes because I like to be able to talk to her about books. Blackbird Oracle, that's a cool title. This is the 5th novel of a series, so I don't know if I'll get around to that. Leigh Bardugo, obviously an author I've heard a lot about. I have not read anything by them, so definitely let me know in the comments if you're looking forward to that book. Lev Grossman, The Bright Sword. Looks like this is some kind of King Arthur retelling, which is not normally something I gravitate to, and I feel like Laura from Fantasy Awash, actually that's not her channel name anymore, it is just Laura Blake, as she's getting ready to publish her first book. But I feel like if I didn't read The Warlord Chronicles as a King Arthur retelling, she would disown me as a friend, so we can't be having that. A Sorceress Comes to Call by T. Kingfisher. Obviously, this is an author I've heard a lot of things about. Not one that I have any experience with yet. Maybe at some point it will be A Sorceress Comes to Call. Looks like it's a Brothers Grimm retelling, retellings are hit and miss for me for sure. It's not always something that I am into. So that's maybe one I will want to read from her at some point. Once again, I feel like that is an author who I'm constantly seeing brought up and is one that I need to experience at some point. The Foxwife does not look like something I would be interested in reading, but let me know if I'm wrong once again. The Night Ends with Fire. Now this cover looks awesome, and just from the cover alone, it looks like one I would want to read. Looks like it follows Mulan, so maybe it's not necessarily for me, but I do like the cover, and I kind of like the Disney movie. It's been too long since I've read it. An Academy of Liars. That is an interesting cover, not something that is really drawing me in. The Warm Hands of Ghosts. That's an interesting title. Looks like it has something to do with World War I, but not necessarily something I'm going to be picking up. Voyage of the Damned. There's some good titles on here. A TikTok sensation probably means that's presumptuous of me to say that I won't like it because it's a TikTok darling, but probably doesn't bode too well for me. A Song to Drown Rivers, man, good title, but once again, not really one that is screaming out to me, especially with the quick synopsis there. And then The Book of Doors, once again, just from the cover, not something that looks like it's going to be for me. It is a magic adventure romance, which, you know, I said I was getting into romantasy, so maybe it's something I'll pick up at some point as I continue on. But next up, let's go ahead and switch over to the science fiction books, and we will see how, once again, same kind of thing, we'll see how many of these I know, if I want to read any of them. So starting at the top, Orbital, a novel. Looks like this is some kind of space story. I'm not sure that's going to be something that's screaming for my attention right now. We have The Moon of Turning Leaves. This looks like a book too, so that makes it hard for me to say anything about. I Cheerfully Refuse, interesting title, especially for a science fiction book. Looks like it is set slightly in the future of America, and they're sailing around. See, this is one I'm kind of interested on, how this is a science fiction book. It doesn't sound very science fiction to me. He's a musician on Lake Superior. And then we have Service Model by Adrian Tchaikovsky. This is one I have definitely thought about picking up. I've seen plenty of people who are pretty big fans of it and have some interesting things to say about it. That author, Tchaikovsky, so far has been kind of a miss for me. I've only read maybe 2 or 3 books by him. One or two were actually short stories or, you know, novellas, and they were fine, but nothing crazy. So I'm still kind of looking for that one Adrian Tchaikovsky book to like really make me see what everyone else is seeing by him. Beautyland is not one that I have heard of. The Black Box of Doom is a dark, humorous thriller set in modern. See, once again, I'm curious on, is it because it's not even set in the future. So I'm curious on how this exactly is a science fiction book, but doesn't really look like one for me. Absolution. So this is a series. This is obviously the Southern Reach trilogy, the first one being Annihilation. This is a series that I had originally planned to read in 2024, and it slowly just, you know, got bumped off the TBR month after month. But it is definitely one that at some point I would like to read. I've heard it's a very strange series and there's all kinds of interesting things going on. And so it is kind of one that is on my radar to get to at some point. So seeing Absolution on here, I think is nice to see. And then we have In Ascension, which I think I talked with Joanna slightly about this being maybe similar to Solaris. Is that what it was? Where there's like Earth planet, you know, and there's a lot of cognitive things going on with like how important and how big is humanity in the cosmos and that kind of thing. So I think there was maybe some interesting things about this. I will say, because it was slightly compared to Solaris, which I somewhat enjoyed, but it's not one that like I'm dying to get to, so, or dying to read again or anything like that. So I'm not sure if this is one that will get up onto my list. Extinction by Douglas Preston. Just from that quick synopsis there, it sounds like this might be kind of a similar to a Jurassic Park kind of book. So this is actually one that I will probably consider picking up, just because I find that whole idea of bringing things back to life, you know, from extinction to be very interesting. So this is one that's probably going to creep onto the to be read at some point list. We have The Stardust Grail, an anti-colonial space heist to save an alien civilization. That sounds pretty interesting. So that's 2 from this one row I am kind of interested in reading. Sky Full of Elephants. Wow, that's in a world where white people no longer exist. That sounds like something. And then Mercy of the Gods by James S. A. Corey. I have a full review out for this. This is one of the few books it seems like that I have read going through these first 2 sections so far. I am one of the people who's much more positive on this than some others. I think a lot of people went into this expecting and wanting more of the Expanse, and that is absolutely not what the Mercy of the Gods is. I am glad that it is a book that worked for me. It is definitely showing you that humanity is not the top of the food chain, and what it would probably be like to encounter a alien race that is significantly different than like the humanoid kind of aliens that most people think about. And so I found this book to be extremely thought-provoking, and I really enjoyed certain aspects of it. Were there some flaws? Yes, absolutely, of course. This book was not perfect by any means, but it is one that I really liked. One of the better I don't know if I'd even say it's one of the better science fiction books I read this year, but I will say it is not a science fiction book that I was hyped up for, or a book I was hyped up for at all that disappointed me. I'm very much happy with my reading experience here with The Mercy of the Gods. The Other Valley. I believe this is a book that I considered reading for my horror reads, and I think it ends up having to do with some kind of murder mystery maybe. Maybe I'm confusing that with another book, but I am pretty sure I have heard of this one. The rest of these I have not heard of. The Family Experiment, just from that synopsis, doesn't sound like something I would be interested in. Red Side Story, obviously a play on West Side Story, and it is book 2 of something, so probably not going to be something I'm picking up. And then the blueprint, what a cover. That is a heck of a cover there. Looks like this is set in an alternate US and full of a world of injustices. I'm sure this is a pretty big commentary on, you know, some social issues today, just from that quick synopsis. I kind of want that book just for the cover, because that cover is pretty epic. The Ministry of Time, a time travel romance spy thriller. This kind of reminds me of, what is that book with the birds on it? This is How You Lose a Time War? I haven't read that, but that just quick synopsis sounds similar to me, which means probably not too interested in it. Baby X. Wow, that is a crazy premise. So that's another book that I'm probably gonna have to add onto the list. You can just create a baby from any matter, so people are gonna steal stuff from celebrities to the highest bidder. That one sounds pretty interesting. That's one I'm gonna probably wanna check out. Annie Bot. Okay, this is another one. So this, just reading this synopsis really quick, reminds me of the movie Her with Scarlett Johansson, and I forget the actor's name, but you know, it's a virtual girlfriend or something. This one looks like she's a robot instead. But that whole idea, I think that is a future we are rapidly approaching, and I don't think people understand some of the impacts that like AI and robotics is going to have in like the next 50 years. I think it's going to be absolutely crazy. So I'm pretty interested in reading that one. And then the final sci-fi book is Yours for the Taking, and this looks to be a climate change book, so probably not one that I'm going to be overly interested in. I have read some climate books in the past, and if it's more of them just living normal life in a setting like that, it's not normally something I'm probably going to gravitate towards, but you know, everyone's going to have their own mileage there. Now let's quickly, the next three will be much quicker than those two. I wanted to dive a little bit deeper in those, but let's go ahead and look at some of the audiobooks. I am not surprised to see this Anxious Generation here, just for the fact that I've heard a lot about this book. I can't say necessarily that the audio is amazing for it, but this book I have heard getting a lot of buzz. Once again, same with Somewhere Beyond the Sea. This, once again, just seems like a book that's, you know, really popular right now, and I'm sure they got a great narrator for it. I had no comment on those, no comment on Listen for Lies. 1984, this is always a weird one where they redo a book from, you know, a very long time ago. I have mixed feelings on stuff like this being considered. But 1984 is a great book, so I mean, it's hard to complain about that. Emily Henry, I'm sure she's very popular. She probably always has good audiobooks. Same with Sally Rooney. This is another person who I know always is extremely popular in a completely demographic than I'm used to. Unfortunately, these four books, have no idea, nothing about them. I'm assuming Whoopi Goldberg is going to do her own narration, so you know, she talks for a living, probably is pretty good. The Women, this is a book that I see all over the place, but I don't know anything about it. But once again, so I have nothing to say about any of these audiobooks other than what I just said. So let's go ahead, quickly go to Romantasy. I'm more curious on if I recognize any of these just from being in and around book spaces online. So let's see, I recognize this one, which is Feybound. I recognize the Sarah J. Maas one. I recognize A Fate in Blood. I don't recognize any of the other ones. I don't know if any of these are good or bad. I just was kind of curious to see if the one Romantasy, the Phoenix Keeper that I read, if it would be on here, and it's not, but I did recognize some of them. And then very quickly, we will go ahead and finish off with some favorite fiction. And just looking here really quickly, none of these are pulling me in, and these actually, I haven't heard of any of these. So that is always an interesting time. And you know what? Let's check out horror real quick too while we're here. We Used to Live Here. This is one that is very high up on my list that I want to read. That sounds really good. I've not heard of that one. Don't know about that one or that one. Nope. You Like It Darker. I'm not surprised that that is here. This is a Stephen King collection that at some point I will get around to reading. Don't know about that one. Nope. This another T. Kingfisher book. I'm not surprised to see her here again. I actually know her mostly for her horror stuff, so that is not a surprise. Nope, 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 nope. No, and no. So yeah, once again, this just shows that there is so much reading going on out there. And just because it doesn't always perforate our area of booktube, that doesn't mean that there are not many books out there that are worth reading. Don't be afraid to expand your circle and everything. Let me know what you think about the Goodreads Choice Awards in general down below in the comments. Like I said, I think it's a fun kind of thing that they do. I don't think it should be taken too seriously. I don't think this is, you know, something anybody should be upset about, because it is just something fun. And anytime you're having a big user-generated thing like this, you're gonna have all kinds of results from people who are not involved in the spaces that you think are overly important when they really aren't. But that is all for me. I hope you have a good one. And once again, let me know your thoughts down below in the comments.